Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Cardinals on SI podcast. Every week, joined by my main squeeze, Richie Bradshaw. I am Don and Drew. Before we get into the nitty gritty, go to comment, like, subscribe on the video. All the support is greatly appreciated. Follow Richie on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Don and Drew. Richie, great post-game show last night. Got a bit more news on a couple of key defensive pieces for the Cardinals moving forward, on top of a playoff mentality, which we will speak to in a little bit. Before we get into it, how are you?
I am good. It's always a good time to sit here and talk some ball with my boy. And of course, Hank Hill is joining us. So hopefully he is, handing out some propane and propane accessories. Now,
Hanging
very
out,
much
hanging out with
appreciated.
them UFC ring girls. What he's doing in the profile pic.
Atta guy. Dude, no one blames you. No one blames you. You're living my life, man. I wish I was you, Hank.
Living La Vida Loca. It's not a busy day for Cardinals news, but an exciting day for Cardinals news, especially if you're a Cardinals fan. Coming off that 16-6 loss against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 12, they're looking to bounce back. Got a big.
I won't tell Peggy. You're good, Hank. I got you. Peggy don't need to know nothing.
Big matchup against the Minnesota Vikings on the road in Week 13. And Richard, they're going to get a little help, and I'm not one to bury the lead, so we'll get into it right away. Jonathan Gannon, speaking with reporters today, told media members that Darius Robinson, they're taking it day by day with him verbatim, but he is on track to play and to make his NFL debut finally after weeks and weeks of waiting. It does look like the debut of Darius Robinson is on the horizon. The wait has been very, very long, Richie. The Cardinals fans have been waiting since preseason, since we got that little taste of what the number 27 overall pick could do in a Cardinals uniform. He flashed what he could do in training camp, moving Paris Johnson Jr. back like a shopping cart and then just dominating the little snaps we saw for him against the New Orleans Saints. He suffered a calf injury in a preseason practice, has been out ever since. Finally, surely, whatever it is, however you want to frame it, if all goes according to plan, Darius Robinson will play NFL football this coming Sunday.
How awesome is that? Like you said, awesome. Cardinal fans have been waiting a minute for Darius Robinson to get onto the field. And this is a player that has the ability to play inside and outside. He has all the tools that you're looking for. And that versatility is going to be so key, Donnie. Having someone that is able to move around the alignment. I'm really curious if at any point they try him as an elephant rusher and have him in a 2-point stance and standing up. I feel like he could do whatever you want him to do. And that's what's going to make this defense so much better. We've talked about it for weeks now that Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon have done a phenomenal job of scheming up pressure and generating a pass rush very unorthodox. Well, now you're getting a true pass rusher, someone that you can write your game plan around when it comes to how you're going to get after the quarterback. Is Darius Robinson can be that chess piece for you that you follow and is the key to all of it. So you should be really excited with Darius Robinson coming back. Let me pose a quick question to you. Just want your opinion. And Hank, I would love your opinion too. The current leader on the team in sacks is my man, Dante Stills with 4.5. Mm-hmm. If Darius plays the rest of the year, can he match 4.5?
That would be tough. 6 games left on the schedule. His first coming this week. That would be tough. And that's not me being a negative Nelly. That is me just looking at a guy who is going to be so far behind everybody else, especially as a rookie.
Yes.
Coming in the last final third of the season. I don't want to place too many expectations on him. I think he'll wreck a lot of what's going to go on in the interior. I think he will put some pressure on the quarterback, but I don't think 4.5 sacks. I don't want to call that unrealistic, but I just personally would not expect that out of him.
The good news is he could get 4.5 sacks against the Patriots and no one would be surprised.
Oh, dude, for sure. I think that's the really cool thing about his upside is that you look at the guy he was at Missouri, the guy who can line up as a defensive end, defensive tackle, no matter where, and he would still wreck chaos. And then Buda Baker said it perfectly last week. He's such a pro's pro already as a rookie, and he's a potential game wrecker. And I think that's exactly what Cardinals fans saw in preseason and training camp. That's exactly what they've been wanting this entire time. And granted, it's a very, very banged up front seven. Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, BJ Ojulari, Dennis Gardeck are all on injured reserve, and they've played admirably well the last few weeks. And then you enter this spark plug, this guy like Darius Robinson into the lineup. Yeah, you would be very, very excited. And for a defense that is generating pressure without some of their top names, think of what a guy like Robinson can do. Now, all of that being said, I don't want to give him massive expectations. I think the Cardinals have played this very, very well in terms of just taking it day at a day, one by one, perfectly, playing it like he should be, not rushing him back, but also kind of managing those expectations at the same time.
Yeah. It's a really exciting thought, but you definitely do have to be able to not only manage the expectations, but manage what he can do on the field. As versatile as he is, and as much as you're going to want to move him around, it may not be super realistic to have that be the case from day one. He may need some time to get balanced again, to get comfortable and competent coming off of his injury, because that's one of the biggest aspects when these guys are returning from injury, is having the confidence and the mindset to know, I'm not going to re-injure this. I've done the work, I've done the rehab, I've done whatever I need to do. It's a real thing. But the Cardinals also need to make sure they're taking care of him, because Darius Robinson can say until he's blue in the face, hey, I'm good to go. I don't need to have any training wheels on. And if the coaching staff says, yeah, that's fine, but he re-aggravates an injury, that's on the coaching staff. So it's going to be up to Robinson to make sure he's good to go, but also on the coaching staff to make sure that they're managing him no matter if he says he's 100% or if he says he's 50%. You need to take care of him.
100%. And I think that's exactly what happened last week. Robinson practiced all 3 days and then also got in on that bonus Monday practice coming off of the bye week. He was questionable. He worked out pregame. Like they put him through everything. And the Cardinals, if anything I've learned about covering Jonathan Gannon through the last through the last 2 years, is they are not going to rush an injured player back, because more times than not, like you had highlighted, that'll lead to some pretty bad things. Now, on the other side of the token, I know it would be very easy for them, being in the predicament that they were or are currently in, for them to say, hey, you know what? We need him.
Yep.
If we're serious about this playoff push, we need him. But
they
also,
could have done it weeks ago.
Yep.
They could have done it weeks ago if they had that mentality, and they didn't.
But they didn't. I think they're taking the smart approach with him. But also, it's very exciting that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, granted, they could still work him through practice, and they could say, you know what, like, he needs another week.
Right.
But like JG said, man, they're going to take it day by day, but all signs are pointing to Darius Robinson making his debut against a very, very tough Vikings team who've won 4 in a row. They're 9-2. His return couldn't have came at a better time. And, if you want to look at it this way, if he's at least a little bit limited against the Vikings, okay, now he has a game under his belt, and now we have the Seattle Seahawks coming to town for a very big Week 14 matchup that could potentially help decide the NFC West on a little bit of road. At least Robinson has that game film, those snaps, those reps under his repertoire now.
Yep, and he's got a good test against the Vikings, who have a more than quality offensive line, before he's got some games against some very beatable offensive lines, including Seattle. I did mention the Patriots. They've got a very beatable offensive line. They have the Panthers left on their schedule. That's a very beatable offensive line. They've got the 49ers, and as long as he's not lined up on Trent Williams, that's a very beatable offensive line, but it's still a quality offensive line. He's going to have a handful of games to get acclimated, build some confidence and some swagger in himself if he does find a way to dominate the Panthers and the Patriots and the Seahawks. But it starts with this game against the Vikings, which, again, they have a more than quality offensive line, which should provide him a very good challenge. Don't be surprised if Robinson is not in the box score this week. He may not make any plays because he's coming back from injury against a good unit. So it's just going to take some time. The most important thing is getting him active, getting him reps, live reps, not practice reps, live reps. This is an important game.
Huge. I don't think I could have said it better myself.
Freaking huge.
Freaking huge. So in case just joining, Darius Robinson, all signs are pointing to him playing. Jonathan Gayton said earlier today. They're taking it day by day, but pretty much, Darius Robinson is quote unquote on track to play, is what Jonathan Gayton had said to reporters earlier today. Coming back to the practice field is also starting safety Jalen Thompson, who Gannon said will be out there on Wednesday. Before we talk about JT, we highlighted this in the post-game stream yesterday, Richie. I do want to give flowers to Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, who looks like a quality safety in the National Football League early in his rookie year. 15 combined tackles, 3 passes defense in the 2 games he started for Jalen Thompson. Very admirable play by Rabbit. But when you can get a guy like Jalen Thompson back into the fold, it just makes your defense so much better.
Yes. Rabbit is awesome. And I love the idea of having him as your third safety. And in today's NFL, having 3 safeties is a really, really good, not even a problem to have. It's a good asset to have for your team.
Luxury.
Yes. Like you're going to see a lot of the really good defenses in the league have at least 2 good safeties, but probably have 3 good safeties. Rabbit has really advertised himself this year. And remember, he came out of Texas Tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a raw prospect. There was a lot of work to be done.
Pick.
Yeah. And he already is showing flashes. Now he gets to go back and learn a little bit after getting those live reps, which I just said for Darius Robinson is huge. He gets to sit behind Jalen Thompson, who is one of the most underrated safeties in the NFL, matching with Budda Baker, who is one of the best safeties in the NFL. So you have that trio. That is a great component for this defense. But having JT back is huge, man. Like, as good as Rabbit is, JT has been proven for a handful of years now, and he's almost a secret weapon for this defense.
Not a lot of people talk about him on the national level, and it's crazy because you could say the same thing about Budda Baker, but Budda does get flowers from a lot more people, right, on a bigger scale. But
he's got Pro Bowls.
Totally, I think the recognition is there for him.
How many people outside of Arizona know who Jalen Thompson is?
Or even
outside of Arizona and outside of Pullman, Washington, where he played for Washington State,
or even respect his talents. It's probably a lot fewer than the actual number should be. But whenever it comes to Jalen, especially on a week where you're traveling on the road to Minnesota,
right,
you're going to need to keep the top covered against a guy like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and the Vikings, whatever else they can bring to the table. That's going to be so key. And a guy like Jalen Thompson, where he really thrives with Budda Baker, kind of playing that box safety roles, he loves to play that kind of like center fielder spot because he's so fast. He's great at tackling. It seems like he does everything super, super well. And like you said, on those packages, and the Cardinals do like to run it, where they do have 3 safeties on the field, those 2 combined with a guy like Rabbit as that third guy, so much. So I think his presence is just more than fill another starting spot back with a guy who should be there in the first place, but I think gives him just a little bit more versatility on the back end as well.
Yep, and this is a great week to get him back as well, because not only does this team have Jetta's the best receiver in football, but they've got Jordan Addison, they've got TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones can catch the football, and Sam Darnold has been a good quarterback this year. They need that center fielder to be able to hold up the back end of the defense. And if you do decide to bracket a receiver, and I would prefer that you did when it comes to Justin Jefferson, find a way to get him in double coverage. Jalen Thompson is going to be one of the most important players in that kind of factor. Like, I would shade number 34 wherever number 18 is lining up. And no matter who it is that's lining up opposite him as your boundary corner, I would feel much more comfortable and confident if Jalen Thompson was playing behind him. But again, there's a lot of weapons on this offense. You can't just focus on Jetta's. He obviously takes priority. This is just a
Well, look at
really,
what the
really good
Bears
week.
did. The Bears limited Justin Jefferson fairly
2
well. And
catches.
they
Yeah,
took him to overtime. It took a
and then
game-winning
look what
kick in
Addison
overtime
did.
for the Vikings to get out of there with a win.
Yep, and look what Addison did because they focused on Jettas. He went for like 120 yards and a touchdown. So,
but you also can't have that happen on the other side of the token too. Like you're still allowing a receiver to go for
right,
120,
and
whether
that's
it's
what I'm
Addison or
saying.
Jefferson.
Right, that's what I'm saying is you can key on Jefferson, and I hope you do, but you have to remember that there's other guys here as well. The bottom line is having Jalen Thompson back for this game is really, really important for the Cardinals, and it couldn't come at a better time to make sure that you are placing your defense in the best position to have success against a offense that can pop off with several different players. Having that center fielder is going to help limit the big plays, which is what will help you beat the Vikings. That is an offense that thrives off of big plays.
Yep.
Live and die by the 3 in basketball, and in the Vikings offense, it's live and die by the 30-yard passes down the field.
Jordan Addison 8 for 162 and a touchdown. Hawkinson 7 for 114. Then there's a drastic drop off. Jay Jettas 2 for 27 against Chicago, and then their next leading receiver is Aaron Jones 3 for 23. So Cardinals definitely have their work cut out for them. But when you can get a guy like Thompson in the back, I mean, it's just phenomenal in so many ways. If you're watching, say what's up. Obviously, our guy Hank Hill's in the chat. Cooking with propane. No charcoal around here. Really quick. Charcoal or propane?
I use propane almost every time I grill. Charcoal, I'll tell you, I've never personally used charcoal. I've had charcoal grilled stuff when I was growing up. I don't have a problem with it. I just have always used propane for myself. I'm a propane man. What about you, Donnie Druin?
Hank Hill in the chat. I got to go propane, right?
I was going to say, you also got to be careful here because Hank Hill can whoop your butt. There's a reason he's hanging out with the UFC girls, and it's because he's going to go in that octagon right behind him, and he's going to beat your ass.
Moving on, the latter part of Jonathan Gannon's press conference today featured an interesting quote I wanted to bring up. And heading into the bye week, after they had beaten the New York Jets, he said something along the lines of like, the season starts now. Like we're 6-4, we have a lead in the NFC West, but the real season starts now. Obviously coming off the new season, they're 0-1 after losing to Seattle. He did offer this to say, he said, one run at a time, we're in playoff football right now. It is what it is. We don't shy away from that. Honestly, you could be thankful with the holiday coming up. You could be thankful we're playing meaningful games right now. We've earned that right, but it really doesn't mean you know what, which you can fill in the blanks if you want to. And then he just goes on a little bit to talk about, what they got to do in Minnesota, well-coached, really good players. Every game means something right now. We put it out today because the explosive battle play and the takeaway battle, which is a double positive, was even to the point. Margin for error in playoff football and meaningful games is very small. So we got to be on the details. And I'm glad that he brought that up because what I don't want to say cost him the game, but dude, that Kyler Murray pick 6 on that 4th down completely flipped the game on its head. And there's no one single play that will determine an outcome of an NFL game. Just it is what it is.
That was
but it's really hard to deny the impact that it had. And like you said, if that's as close as you're going to get to one play defining a game and completely flipping it on its head.
Yep. There are certain games where you can think of 1 or 2 moments that were totally defining. More often than not, when you're talking about winning or losing a game, a lot of people will direct their attention to certain things. An interception, a really bad penalty, and blaming certain players and individuals and the refs for a loss. More often than not, it's a collection of different things, and it's a 60-minute game. You can't point to one play, one missed call, one bad penalty call as to the reason you lost the game. But that pick 6, I mean, that truly did feel like the kiss of death in that game when you were watching it. It was brutal, Donnie, to see that happen in real time. And yeah, I don't know about you, but when I was watching it, there was a part of me that sat
22. Okay, sorry.
I love Beyonce, but neither here nor there right now. when I was watching that, there was a part of me that sat there and I went, "That's game. There's that's it.
You know,
Game over,
I
man. Game
wasn't
over."
quite there, but man, it's just like a gut punch when you're on the road. You know you're gonna have to grudge out a win against
Right.
the Seahawks at Lumen Field. Um, you're on the road like that, and then like that happens. Like, to be fair, Gannon today did say that, you know, they do coach the gotta have it situations a little bit better, and Kyler did have the green light to try to make a play out of nothing. Devon Witherspoon making up that ground that quickly on the play after realizing that, oh shoot, they're not handing it off to James Conner. Kyler's keeping it for him to pivot and then to force the pressure on Kyler Murray to throw that ball, and then Kobe Bryant jumping up after the ball
Right.
was overseen 69 yards later. It's a touchdown. Um,
Nice.
nice. Something you got to tip your cap, but you know, needless to say, you really hope they learned from it. And that was something Gannon said after his press conference yesterday was, we're going to use this week as a big learning opportunity. And I'm really curious to
You
see
have to.
what exactly they're going to learn from it. I'm going to ask him on Wednesday whenever I am there. But playoff football, they're treating the entire rest of the schedule like the postseason. Richie, we have the rest of the schedule right here. Obviously, this graphic is from ESPN. At Minnesota, and then they are at home for their last 3 of 5 games. Seattle, New England, Carolina, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Talk about playoff football, Richie. There's a good chance that you can probably go 5-1, 4-2 here and feel really good.
Yep. Very much so. And what's really funny, if you think about it, 4 of your final 6 games are against playoff contending football teams.
Yeah.
And that's probably the way you should view this. I think the best way to approach this is, hey, we have 4 playoff games left on our schedule. We've got New England at home. We've got Carolina on the road to hopefully be some tune-up games and get the guys reinvested. But you have 2 games on the road and 2 games at home. 3 of those 4 games are division games, which will likely decide a lot of stuff, not just for you, the Cardinals, for the rest of the division too. Because the Cardinals have the tiebreaker with the with the 49ers and the Rams right now.
Mm.
So if they split, they're even. If they split with the Seahawks, they're even. If they can sweep the Rams, if they can sweep the Niners, it not only helps the Cardinals' chances, but it plummets those other teams' chances. So there's a lot of weight that's being held with those 3 NFC West games that are left to go. And then the Vikings, honestly, this is a really good prove it opportunity. The Vikings are in that category of, like, they're pretty good. They're clearly in the second tier of the NFC, might be a third tier, depending on how you want to build your tiers. But they are probably a wild card team right now. And if you want to also put yourself in the category of a wild card team, you need to be able to beat Minnesota. I think this is a big statement, prove it game for you, especially on the road. And it won't be easy.
I would agree. I think going into Minnesota is going to be such a daunting task for them, like anybody, not
Right.
specifically gearing this to Arizona, but for any team to play the Vikings right now at US Bank Stadium, it's going to be tough, no doubt about it. Where you get tricky is it really feels like, Richie, you got to win the NFC West to punch your postseason ticket.
Yes.
Because with how well the Lions are playing in, you know, taking a hold of that NFC North crown, you got the Vikings right behind them. You got the Packers right behind them. Both have better records than you. Like, it's going to take quite the turnaround for both you and other teams going the opposite direction for you to clinch a wild card spot. I think the good news for Arizona is that 3 of your final 6 games are against divisional opponents, 2 of which are at home.
Yeah, and
So
they give you the tiebreakers.
You still feel good about controlling your own destiny.
Yes.
I guess is what.
And you should. You do.
Yeah, and you look at some like playoff possibilities today. I wrote an article because PFF had highlighted with the loss their playoff chances sunk from 76% potentially to 40%. But whenever you look at other places like the Athletic, they're still at 54% to make the playoffs and 51% to win the division. higher than the Seahawks, higher than the Rams, higher than the 49ers. Same thing with the ESPN. I mean, 53% odds to make the postseason, 49% to win a division. They're still top in the NFC West. And then if you go to Tankathon's strength of schedule, the Cardinals are at 22, and then other teams in the division, you got the Rams at 17, you got the Seahawks at 11, you got the 49ers at 5. Like, Richie, like, you feel good about the Cardinals doing their own thing and potentially making their own path to the postseason through the division. But if for whatever reason that doesn't happen and you are forced to kind of hope and pray for a wild card spot, that's tough sledding, man.
It is. It should be a forgiving schedule, but this also is based and predicated on the Cardinals being able to bounce back from a rough game, and you came off a bye. So I'm not out on the Cardinals. I still think that they are going to make a very, very strong push for the playoffs. Wild card is really difficult. 2 of the 3 spots are likely taken by the NFC North runner-ups. The good news, the Commanders are slumping. They've dropped 3 straight. Like, who would have thought that a Cliff Kingsbury-led team would have a second half fall off? So you want to see the Commanders continue to slip. And in a worst case scenario with the NFC West, you just want to make sure that you have some kind of tiebreaker over one of the teams. So if you finish second, you want to make sure that you are definitively ahead of the Rams or the 49ers or the Seahawks or whoever it might be. The NFC South, it's the Falcons to control it. Maybe Tampa makes a run at it, but I like the Cardinals over Tampa right now. So you're really battling for one spot if it's not the division. But being in position to win the division, we got to talk about that more. I feel like not enough people are recognizing that. I feel like so many more people are really focusing on how difficult the path is to get there, instead of understanding that the division is within your grasp. You might control your fate in the division better than anyone else. It's between you and the Seahawks. It's up to you two to decide how this season is going to shake off for the NFC West. And the Seahawks have been very hot and cold this year. There's great games and there's terrible games. The Cardinals have been more consistent. So right now, if you're asking me to pick a division winner, it's probably the Cardinals, because I trust them to be able to rebound. But you got to find a way to finish strong. You probably have to finish 4-2 in the division, preferably 5-1.
I would agree. And I think where it can get kind of tricky, Richie.
Tricky Richie, I like it.
Yeah, copyrighted. I think where it gets tricky is, you want to have both possibilities open for both the division or wild card spot. You lose this game in Minnesota this coming Sunday. I'm not assuming, but just saying, Vikings at home, tall task. If you don't win that game, I think that makes Seattle week 14 very close to must-win territory, because if you're able to win that game, you're able to kind of save your division hopes. If you let Seattle go up a game on you, I don't know how I feel about trying to play catch up those last 4 weeks of the season. Now, granted, they do play the Patriots, they do play the Panthers back-to-back weeks after that. You liked what you saw out of them from the Rams earlier in the year also, but they're getting healthy. But you have the Niners who can look like anything come week 18. It's a lot of unknown. If they can just win either game against Minnesota or Seattle, I would feel so much better about them going to the final 4 games and where they're currently at right now.
You have to split Seattle. That is the bare minimum. You have to split with Seattle. If you don't split with Seattle, the division's gone. There's no way, because you could still finish 4-2. That's all good and dandy.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle would also be able to finish 4-2. And since they have 2 wins over you, they get that edge. That Patriots game, like, we can look at that and say, ooh, that's a really good game to get a win. Donnie, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter nearly as much because it's an out-of-conference game. When you go through tiebreakers, they are going to care about your division record, your overall record, your division record, and your conference record when they're deciding those things.
True.
So the Patriots win if you get the win, and they've been a competitive team ever since Drake May took over. If you get that win, it's still important, but if Tampa finishes with the same record as you, but they have a better record in the NFC than you do. They're getting in over you.
Oh, sure.
So
No, whenever
you
it comes
got
to
to prioritize
tiebreakers,
those other 5 games.
no, 100%. But also, I think games like the Panthers and even the
Panthers are
Patriots
tricky
too.
too, man.
Well, with games like those against teams that aren't necessarily going to be in the postseason hunt, at least right now, realistically, um, I think those games it's just more of like, hey, you know what? Like let's take care of business. Let's stay afloat. Let's keep ourselves in it.
It's trap
And
games.
then
It's 2 trap games.
yeah, I mean, do trap games exist?
Yes.
Do they? Are you believing trap games, Richie Bradshaw?
Trap games and emotional letdowns, absolutely.
Letdowns for sure. I don't know. An NFL team should not fall into a trap game. It's my personal belief.
They shouldn't, but they do.
But they do. They do. That's fair. That is fair, my man. All right. Do you have anything else to add before we can boot, scoot, and boogie out of here? Charlotte, Brooks, and Dunn.
Love Brooks and Dunn. Absolutely phenomenal. Turkey or ham?
I'm a turkey guy. I value both.
Yes.
If you're making me pick one, I'll go turkey.
Here's the thing. I prefer turkey. The people that don't like turkey don't know someone who knows how to cook a turkey properly. Because if you do it the way you should, you can get that thing nice and juicy. And that's one of the complaints, right? Is turkey's too dry. You're not cooking it right. Because
here's
the
my
turkey
thing.
that I get is nice and moist and juicy, and you can find some seasonings to put on it that isn't too strong, but it still gives it a little bit of a good taste.
Even if it's dry, though, like Thanksgiving is the perfect opportunity to get some like mashed potatoes on there, maybe some gravy. Like you can doctor up a bad
Right.
turkey, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But also,
what
if
it's worth-
there's ham on the table, I'm also
I'm
going
taking
to eat
both.
it too.
Yeah. If it were up to me, turkey for Thanksgiving and a Christmas ham.
Yeah, I mean
that's the way I
like
prefer it.
Standard though.
Right. So I know some people flip it, or some people just like ham both times.
They flip it?
Yes. Some people don't like turkey for Thanksgiving, which feels like heresy. And then you have some people that'll do a turkey for
Heresy?
Christmas. And I don't get that.
Heresy? What'd you say?
Heresy.
Do you mean hearsay?
Hearsay. We're not in court.
What's heresy?
Like a sin. Am I not using the right word?
I don't know what you're saying, man.
Are we live?
Yes. Unfortunately, we're live.
Unfortunately.
All 4 people are wondering what just happened.
I have your location.
You do have.
We're going to fight. So keep the live on, and I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Are you a cranberry sauce guy at all?
Not really.
Yeah.
If it's mushed up and mixed with vodka, I love my cranberry.
We're gonna end it right there. Thank you so much for tuning into another edition of the Cardinals on SI podcast.
You're gonna boo me because
Follow
I'm
us
right
on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druid. Go like subscribe on the video. Thanks for everybody for checking us out. We will be back hopefully later in the week to preview the Vikings matchup. But if we don't hear from you guys, happy holidays. Please everybody stay safe. And we'll talk to you guys soon.